7 minutes further.
All right, fellas, it's time to belly flop off this cliff, head first, and talk about our first module, masculinity, the 2-inch penis club. That's right, you heard me, the 2-inch penis club. Would you believe that was an actual bumper sticker I saw on the back of an old beat-up Dodge pickup the other day? What do you suppose that 20-something, hat pulled down over his eyes boy was trying to communicate? I wondered if he thought it was manly to have the word penis on the back of his window. I certainly wouldn't be bragging about 2 inches. Is he part of some sort of a glacier swimming polo club? I mean, come on, fella. Lie a little. Speaking of the penis, there are no less than 16 synonyms assigned to that. It pretty much makes us uniquely male. I don't care how much someone tries to dress like a man, look like a man, sound like a man, and even live like a man. But if you don't have that particular piece of equipment, well, you get my dangling point. I told Carol one time that I would rather lose another body part than something happened to old Captain Wiggly. She insisted that I was insane, and that certainly could not be true. So I actually found a survey that asked that same question, and 62% of the men surveyed said the same thing. When I was a teenager, I couldn't seem to get enough of myself. Now I'm much older, I sometimes wonder if it's still even there. So just how does the world define masculinity in this day and age? Is it our job? How fast we drive? The sports we play? How many guns we own? How many women we've slept with? Now that's certainly a world view encapsulated. I searched up the meaning of masculinity, and this is what I found. It comes from a New York Times article, so shouldn't be any surprises here. And this is what it says. Let's begin with the idea that sex, the anatomy with which one is born, does not predetermine gender identity. One's sense of being male, female, or another gender, or gender expression, the way one shows gender to the world. It also went on to attempt and decipher the difference between a good man and a real man. I was born in the 60s, adolescent in the 70s, teenaged in the 80s. Boomers grew up with strong male role models. Our grandparents were World War II vets, and the Duke, well, he showed us all how to be cowboys. There was no guessing how to be a boy. Speed Racer and the Rat Patrol made all of us kids want to go out and adventure. We were kicked out of the house and told to go play and don't come home till dark. Those were the days when being covered in dirt was a good thing, because our favorite toy, well, it was a pile of dirt. We had real metal trucks to play with, but somewhere down the line, well, they became too dangerous. We have forgotten how to let our kids fall down and pick themselves up, and we ended up raising a bunch of titty babies. I don't know how many times my granny called me that. Don't be a titty baby. Get up. You're all right. What happened? How do we slide into what passes as masculinity these days? Birds of a feather, well, they certainly flock together. The men that I hang out with, well, they're certainly a man's man. They can share the gospel and run a chainsaw at the same time. What elevates these men is that they love the Lord and will break their necks serving Him. A warrior's heart is nurtured in these men. Let me read you a passage out of John Eldridge's fine book, Wild at Heart. Here's what he has to say about masculinity. We don't need accountability groups. We need fellow warriors, someone to fight alongside, someone to watch our back. The whole crisis in masculinity today has come because we no longer have a warrior culture. A place for men to learn to fight like men. We don't need a meeting of really nice guys. We need a gathering for really dangerous men. Yes, we need men to whom we can bare our souls, but it isn't going to happen with a group of guys you just don't trust, who really aren't willing to battle with you. It's a long-standing truth that there is never a more devoted group of men than those who have fought alongside you, the men in your squadron, the men in your foxhole, and I'll add this one, the men that you have sweat alongside with, whether it's working or recreating. It will never be a large group, but we don't need a large group. We need a band of brothers willing to shed their blood with us. One of my favorite biblical stories is about 3 of David's mighty men. David and his band of brothers, they're surrounded by Philistines. The story is relayed in 2 Samuel chapter 23, verses 13 through 17. Check this out. This group of ragtag fighters are held up in their stronghold. They're sitting around the campfire, roasting s'mores and swapping out war stories. Shammah, he pipes up after having one too many cups of fermented mare's milk and says, "Do y'all remember the time when Abishai's hand froze to the sword after killing 300 men?" Not to be outdone, Abishai stumbles to his feet and with a crooked finger surveys the crowd and weaves an incredible story about Shammah himself and how he stood his ground in the middle of a lentil field and belched while all you other yahoos fled. And let's don't forget Benaiah over here. He may be a man of few words, but he is stoked with plenty of action. How about that time he killed that Egyptian giant with his own spear? We ribbed him for days over that one. After the laughter subsides and the men begin to silently gaze into the fire, David could be heard in a whisper, "Phew, I sure am thirsty. I wish I could get a drink of that water in the well at the Bethlehem gate." But the problem with that is, that well at the Bethlehem gate, well, it's behind enemy lines. So what do these 3 daredevils do? They go all in, stealthy, like commando ninjas. They break through the Philistine line, sneak up to the well, fill up all the Home Depot buckets they can carry, and head back to camp. But David's reaction, it's not one you'd expect. Chapter 23 is full of these exploits by David's mighty men, and are some of my favorite stories. Sightsee through that chapter, and you will stare into the eyes, blood-scarred faces, and smell the agony of battles fought. That, my friends, is masculine camaraderie at its finest. I have experienced that kind of camaraderie out in the trenches doing disaster relief work, well, in faraway places. That same kind of bonding, sweating with men in my church while out lending helping hands. Take some time this week and linger through Ephesians 6, 13 through 18. Really feel the weight of that passage as you go through those actions and into those motions. This week's action item is find a vet, at least 3 of them, shake their hands, look them in the eye, and say thank you. And I mean veterans. Our recommended read is John Eldridge's book, Wild at Heart. It's a good one. All right. Remember, dear sirs, life is not a problem to be solved. It's an adventure to be lived. Now go out and wake the dead! Standard, out.